And final part of the event. We will have a panel discussion on a very relevant theme today. Panel discussion will be chaired by Sri Rahul Chhabra. He retired as Secretary Economic Relations and is known as Africa Specialist. Over to you, sir.
Madam Director General, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good to be here. Two sectors that we are going to focus on, health and food security. We are starting with health for obvious reasons. After the pandemic, I think every discussion focuses on health. And I'll give you just some general remarks about India-Africa collaboration or the scope in these sectors, after which, of course, we have a great panel covering North Africa, Morocco. We have East Africa with Djibouti and Ethiopia. We have West Africa with Ghana. We have the island state of Madagascar. So we have a great panel here to discuss more details on that. But on health, firstly, the important factors in that, just a broad brush, this thing, both the state and the private sector are involved in this sort of collaboration. India exports 20% of Indian pharmaceuticals go into the export of cost-effective generics. We have focused a lot on building capacity there. When I was High Commissioner in Kenya, President Kenyatta would thank me often for the Bhabatron machine that was installed there. So these sort of gifts, which we think may not play a great role, several years later, they still are imprinted in the minds of the people and the leadership. So that's just important to know. There's also assistance in technical collaboration. There is medical tourism, again, in this health sector, where, again, a small example, in Somalia, I went to this town in eastern Somalia, Garowe. I mean, pretty much terrorist infested. I don't know how many of you have traveled to Somalia. And out of Somalia, this was a 2-hour flight out of Somalia to Garowe. We ran a 1-day camp, and over 200 medical visas were granted there. And these, you can just imagine 200 with their partners accompanying them, at least would spend about $5,000 to $10,000 each on medical expenses in India. What sort of revenue that could generate for this sort of. So medical tourism is a great, another field where the health collaboration, we tend to only think of what we are doing there, but not the other way around. Many of these people would not get visas for several other countries to travel to get their treatment done. And they have the money, they have the resources. And of course, we all know as Indians also, for family comes first. So these are all family members suffering. So people are ready to sort of, sell their last bit of land, house, whatever, but generate the resources to take advantage of that. During COVID, over 150 tons of medical aid were sent out to African countries. Over 37 million COVID vaccines made in India to 42 countries. These are all sorts of figures that some of you are already aware of. Training courses were conducted on how to handle this COVID pandemic, and there was a great response. These are all conducted online, of course, during that pandemic. Of course, we have a history of helping in terms of HIV and tuberculosis treatments. And the Indian medicines do help NGOs meet their budgets, and several health ministries of several different countries are able to do a lot of sort of good work thanks to Indian medicines being available. So I'll now just talk a little bit about the agriculture, which of course with the drought in East Africa, unfortunately you might have heard several million, close to 20 million people are currently, while we speak, suffering from that. Kenya, Djibouti, Eritrea are under this sort of drought conditions. I mean, considering that Africa has the largest amount of unused arable land, for them to be suffering this sort of condition is really sort of, we need to do something about it at a global level, but of course India can contribute a lot. The Ukraine crisis has not helped at all. Wheat prices have gone up, Ukraine supplies, and Russia supplying the fertilizers to Africa. So that has also brought break in those supplies. Africa spends $35 billion on food imports because of distorted sort of, as we say, export-led agricultural policies, which needs to be looked at how that can be improved. with a youthful population that was spoken about by earlier speakers, which needs employment. India sort of stepped in terms of this drought, just going back a bit, food assistance of over $30 million over the last 2 decades we have provided to Africa. It's also the most number of LOCs, the lines of credit that's been spoken to, by sector goes to the agricultural sector. Several scholarship schemes on that, including the DFTP scheme for duty-free tariff access, is focused on agricultural products. India imports edible fruits, nuts, oilseeds, vegetables. The latest initiative that India has taken in this front is signing agreements with Malawi and Mozambique for imports of pulses, so guaranteeing African farmers a sort of market if they produce this. There are lots more MOUs being discussed with several other African countries for this sort of import of these products. So I'll just, since Ambassador Gurjeet Singh walked in now, I'll just mention that I like the blurb on this section, which says that you can tell a ripe corn by its look. So I think these two sectors, health and food security, are really ripe for plucking. So with these notes, I'll leave the floor to the experts to talk about the bilateral relationship, what their views, and then I'll come back for some concluding remarks. So I'll first call upon Ambassador Isse Abdillahi from Djibouti to make his remarks, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My English is a little bit weak because I'm a French speaker, but I'll try to do my best. Thank you very much. Well, Africa is, with Asia, one of the regions most affected by food and nutrition insecurity in the world. This issue is a major concern both at country level and at a level of continental bodies. This is why the African Union launched on the sidelines of 35th Summit, which was held in February 5 to 6 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the year 2022, with nutrition as a priority on its political agenda. And during his speech, Macky Sall, who is current president of the Continental Organization, indicated that the focus would be on the theme building resilience in terms of nutrition system security on the African continent, strengthening agri-food systems and health system and social protection to accelerate socio-economic and human capital development. So, moreover, it sounds like a call for remobilization in a context where Africa is not on the track to achieve the goal of eliminating child malnutrition in order to reduce stunting to 10% and underweight to 5% by 2025, as set in the commitment made in 2024 in Maputo, the former summit. So there is a need for change of logic in the design of food policies. If in the past African governments have confined themselves to the dimension of caloric intake to address micronutrient deficiency linked to insufficient food availability, well, the reality has become much more complex now. So to this aspect, other major nutritional problems have been added over the last decade, such as the overconsumption of fats, sugar, salt, which have led to an increase in the prevalence of obesity, overweight, diabetes, cardiovascular illness. So this is where the link between food security and health comes. Of course, we observe, for example, in families, people who are obese but have iron or vitamin A deficiencies. This is also the new complexity of the equation now. The rise in obesity did not happen after the disappearance of deficiency disease. We have the two coexisting in the same country between rural and urban areas, in the same city, between rich and poor, within the same family, between parents and children. You can be overweight, even obese, and be deficient in certain micronutrients. We even talk about a triple burden. because in a given country, you can have people who are insufficient in calorie consumption, especially in rural areas. Individuals who have micronutrient deficiency, and in addition, people who are overweight or in a situation of obesity. Such an observation requires, in particular, a paradigm shift in the development of food policies that integrate not only the question of the availability of macronutrients, but also the dimension related to economic accessibility to a diversified food by attacking, in particular, poverty and lack of education, of course. So there is no way of approaching the question, for example, that of the creation of food environments. That is to say, a system which makes it possible to follow the stocks, in particular, what is in the stores, the prices, so that they are more favorable to health, whereas today they are relatively favorable to obesity. These issues must become major concern of food policies, and this also presupposes the training of people capable of carrying out analysis or proposing alternatives. So we in Djibouti have, and East Africa, another additional problem is the lack of rain, is the conflict that lack of rain brings between nomads, between cattle keepers. So we have also problems induced by the climate change. We have problems that induced in addition now by the COVID-19. And the most recent problem now that we are facing is the Ukrainian conflict that is bringing really big shortage of food, especially the cereals. So I will end my intervention by one observation. I was very happy. I have been appointed in India since now 5 months only. I was very happy when I came. I came from Russia. I was appointed in Russia before that. So I was happy to know that India is the second, or can be said the second provider in the world of cereals. But then last month, I have learned that India is stopping export of its cereals. For Djibouti and East Africa and Africa in general, India was the saver in terms of cereal providings, because the world now is increasing this shortage of cereals. And you know that Africa, even though Africa has the most arable lands where we can cultivate, we are facing a lack of agriculture. So we hope that in the future India will open the export of this cereal, because with the last now Ukrainian conflict, who is adding itself to other endeavors, other challenges, sorry. We hope that we will find it from India. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Isse, and a big thank you also for sticking to the time. The time is now 5 minutes, please, for every ambassador that's coming up. Ambassador Tizita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellency Rahul Chhabra, colleague ambassadors and high commissioners, diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to say good afternoon, and I would also like to say thank you so much for the organizer of this event, and also congratulate Ambassador Gurjit for your wonderful book. I'm really honored to be part of this August gathering when we celebrate the 2022 Africa Day as a year of nutrition. Discussing the topic of food and health security is very vital, because in Africa and in most places in the world, we are now facing nutrition as a challenge, and also inclusive health is becoming a very big challenge of the world. when we come specifically to African countries, for instance, Africa is a continent with half of the world's uncultivated arable land is found. It is also a continent where agriculture has the greatest promise with a vibrant market. However, whenever we see the average Africans, their performance in the farm activity is only 40%. And for this, we can create or we can give several kinds of reasons. Conflict is there, climate variability is there, extreme and economic slowdowns, downtowns they are like the key diverse reasons for food insecurity in Africa. And currently also the ongoing COVID pandemic and the crisis in Ukraine is also creating a big problem in food supply in Africa. So, considering the complementarity of priorities by different countries, especially for African countries and for India, despite the different kind of odds that are happening in the world, we can see a lot of cooperation. For instance, we Africans see Indians' approach to Africa as very smooth and something that we can work and we can go a lot in the future. Of course, India government always prefer African solutions for African problem. However, many African countries still found a solution to work together within this framework, including Ethiopia. We are always comfortable to work within this framework for better food security and for better health security in the future. For instance, when we see the general potential of Africa, there is a fertile land, there is better climatic condition, there is good interest to work with. The same happened in Ethiopia. And there are also different kind of initiatives. For instance, in my country, starting from 2019, there is an initiative of wheat production in the lowland area. And nowadays, we are seeing a big progress on that cases. And similarly, when we see cattle production in Africa, Africa has huge potential for cattle production. And Ethiopia is the first, like the largest cattle is also found in Ethiopia. But when we see how much we are really working on that, how much effort we are exerting and getting something out of that, that is still under question. On the other hand, when we come and see what is happening in India, India managed to feed its population. The population of India and Africa are more or less comparable. Despite that, many Indians do not face a problem of getting food at least twice or thrice in a day. So this shows that there is some kind of secret happening over there. And despite the long years of relationship that we had with India, we all African countries can work together and benefit from that. For instance, during this global crisis time, India is one of the greatest countries to provide wheat in good amount to other parts of the world. So why not Africa get together and collaborate in these terms? Of course, India also imports a lot of fertilizers. And many Africans have a problem in getting fertilizers. But what if we share the technologies? Because many African countries have really a big willingness to welcome technologies and to work with. So I believe that if we are like planning to go ahead well in food and food security, there is ample opportunity to collaborate with India. And my government is doing well. Especially, there are a lot of Indian businessmen who are working in agriculture field. There are also a lot of Indians who are working in agriculture production, food processing. But still, a lot has to be done. For instance, many Indian businessmen who are working in agriculture food production want to export their products. They are exporting to many Middle East countries, but they also want to export to India. But there is tariff problem happening over here. So if we manage to redress such kind of problem, we can get like mutual benefit among us, and there is ample opportunity to work together and secure food security through collaboration. The other issue is in terms of health. Now, when we see the data, almost 20% of India's pharma exports goes to Africa. And among these, $17 billion is spent by many African countries to get pharmaceutical products from India. Of course, India's capacity of producing generic drugs and its competitive price make it preferable for many African countries to have access to that. So if there is that kind of opportunity, if there is that kind of potential, we can enhance that even into a bigger aspect. First, by just opening up different kind of pharmaceutical companies in many African countries, because many African countries are now getting up like different kind of pharmaceutical strategies, including Ethiopia. Many African countries are coming up with different kind of world-class industrial parks which are dedicated to pharmaceutical products. For instance, in Ethiopia, we are building close to 11 industrial parks which are world-class and which are ready plug-in industrial parks and which are attractive for many businessmen. And still, there are a lot of Indian companies who are operating. Currently, there are close to 340 Indian companies who are operating in Ethiopia, and most of them are in the pharmaceutical sector. So this is a big opportunity to work together and secure health security through cooperation. Apart from that Indian commercial presence, we can also think of temporary movement of professionals, including doctors, nurses, short-term trainings, telemedicine projects, and so on. And Indian businessmen are also encouraged to work on this potential, and also opening up of some quotas for African students in the fields of medicine, because India is very well known by its medicine faculty. So this is the thing that I always speak whenever I get opportunities. Just to show solidarity, at least the Indian government should open its universities, medical faculties for African countries. At least some quota has to be allotted. This really shows like a willingness and also a means of solidarity to work together in the field of health. The other issue is, we know that India is a hub of medical tourism. Many Africans are coming here, investing their money and getting good treatment. But we can enhance that even in a better way. For instance, why not Indian companies go and open their hospitals in many African countries? That would give a big opportunity for those who had a problem in foreign currency, who had a problem in movement, but who are able to spend. For instance, in a study that is still being undertaken by my embassy, we found that an average African who came from different parts of African countries spend a minimum of 3 weeks to 3 months in India. And they spend a minimum of 10,000 and a maximum of $80,000. So this is a huge amount. So using this, we can work a lot even for more health security. So I feel that there are a lot of opportunities if we can work together. And Africa is emerging, coming up, a lot of trade agreements, including the FTCA, and a lot of medical strategies are coming. And there are a lot of incentives, but still we need to have collaboration and we need to work together. Thank you so much for your ears.
Thank you, Ambassador Tizita. I now hand the floor over to Ambassador Maliki from Morocco, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Namaste and good evening. All people who know me know that I'm not very comfortable in reading. That's mostly in speaking because that is an introduction. But then His Excellency Ambassador Chhabra didn't leave me the choice. So bear with me, I will just read dots and points. Of course, Morocco being one of the largest contributors of food security, I will touch upon a little bit of health sector, but I will speak a little bit more about health security. Maybe Ambassador Tizita foresaw your question about fertilizers, and you know that Morocco is establishing a $3.7 billion unit for fertilizers. So I hope that will just show the solidarity between the intra-African cooperation as well. So Excellency, dear friend, Excellency the Chhabra, Excellency the Singhs, both Harambee and then Adjei, I am truly honored and it's a distinguished privilege to participate in the discussion of very important topic in this prestigious council. Allow me to thank you all for organizing and then for having the quality discussions with the panelists invited here, and especially for the launch of the book, which I take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Singh. The subject we are discussing today is of a burning topicality, to say the least. The world in which we live today has, in the space of less than 2 years, experienced upheavals both in terms of health and food security. As you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic completely transformed our lives and then those we loved. It's caused millions of deaths across the planet. No medical system around the world was prepared for such a shock, wave, and its consequences. In this regard, it is my privilege to commend and then to thank India for its efforts to make the entire international community receive the vaccines, especially the African countries in particular, by providing a good number of vaccines and urgent medical equipment to fight against the pandemic. My country personally was among the first countries to have benefited from several million doses, especially the AstraZeneca, allowing the launch of the national vaccination campaign in a very good auspices. When exactly 3 months ago, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine started, most of the inhabitants of the planet were not at the beginning concerned by this conflict, which took place far from their home. But reality quickly caught up with them and brought them back. Indeed, the two countries concerned are the granary of the world of cereals, wheat, barley, corn, and for oil seeds, to name only these among other commodities. And because of the break of the supply chain of these essential commodities, there have been shortage in markets, coupled with the increase of oil and gas prices to unprecedented level. Food products have become unaffordable, particularly to poor countries, many of which are in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Needless to say how much climate change causing severe droughts and floods have aggravated the situation. Excellencies and dear friends, the question which should be of our concern today is, have we learned lessons from these unprecedented experiences? Because we always talk. And we tend always, and I have already mentioned earlier, we tend always to depict Africa as the most vulnerable continent, depending on other countries for most of their needs, while it can be a big part of the solution of food security of the problem worldwide. Allow me to use the evaluation of a well-placed expert, Mr. Mustafa Tarab, on the future of the African continent and its food security. And Mr. Tarab is the CEO of the OCP Group of Morocco, a world leader phosphate and fertilizer company, which also has 3 joint ventures in India. In fact, the largest public investment of Morocco in Asia exists in India, in phosphate and then fertilizer companies. I quote, "We are witnessing the beginning of a green revolution in Africa. Africa will be the center of solutions to global food security challenges, not the problem. We can reverse this trend and Africa will be a big part of the food security solution. We should strive to transform our natural resources on the continent for the continent." The role of countries like Morocco and India is crucial to reach this objective. Both countries have the expertise and technology in this regard, since with the climate change, we will be much more concentrated on improving the production rather than increasing the arable lands because of the lack of rain, as my colleague has said, in most countries, putting more stress on farmers and supply chain. So the OCP group undertook a series of measures to reach this objective. Morocco, through this branch, OCP I mean, has launched major industrial projects on the continent by co-constructing local units of fertilizer production. These factories will produce on the continent and for the continent tailor-made fertilizers. In other words, fertilizers adapt to the soil and crops, thanks to the natural resources of the countries of establishments and those of Morocco. Each factory will lean on the mining resources available as lever of a co-industrialization. For the moment, the countries involved in the co-construction projects are Ghana, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Nigeria, and then many more others will be involved. India and Africa have often held common positions in global platforms and worked together to safeguard the interests of other developing countries. They have moved joint proposals such as the Agricultural Framework Proposal and Protection of Geographical Indications at the World Trade Organization, and many more actions. My belief is that India and Africa's partnership goes beyond strategic concerns and economic benefits. The partnership is poised for achieving the greater goals of shared prosperity and food security for all. A vibrant agriculture sector is crucial in generating sustainable economic prosperity in both Africa and India, and is a key element to the twin goals of achieving food security and alleviating poverty. Although Africa has 60% of the world's arable land, the continent produces only 10% of the global output. During PM's visit, His Excellency Narendra Modi's historic address to the Ugandan Parliament in July 2018, cooperation on the agriculture sector was declared as one of India's 10 guiding principles for India's engagement with Africa. Therefore, strengthening capacity building agriculture sector and ensuring food security should remain a priority for India and Africa within the framework of their partnership. Much time has been wasted to utilize the available opportunities in Africa, I can tell you the truth, to ensure a real balance between the ownership of its own destiny and the partnership with reliable partners like India. The ongoing COVID pandemic and the current war in Ukraine have brought the issues of food security and health care systems at the forefront, especially for poor countries. They have not only resulted in a drop of foreign exchange earning and exports restrictions, but are now threatening to severely disrupt agricultural value chains. Such a situation will place Africa and India, with their huge demographics, in an important crossroads in their relations. Farmers should be made aware of the basic agricultural methods and what crops they can cultivate given their specific farming land and geographical conditions. Access to better agriculture techniques and fertilizers selected according to the available source are one of the keys to achieve the food security we are all aspiring to. This is why the role of countries like mine and India is important not only for Africa but also, that is why the role of countries like Morocco is important not only for Africa but also for India, being itself a big importer of fertilizers. I can assure you that my country has always not only expressed its strong will to contribute to the improvement of agriculture sector, but also it participates effectively to ensuring food security for all. Joining hands with India in this noble objective has never been as crucial as it has become these days. My wish to conclude with my remarks is that in few years we will have a success story between India and Africa in achieving food and health security for their peoples, to narrate to the future generations to whom we have a serious responsibility that it is currently at stake. I thank you all for your continuation.
Thank you, Ambassador Maliki. I now hand the floor over to CDA from Embassy of Madagascar, Madam Tahina Rasamoelina.
Thank you, Chair. Ambassador Vijay Thakur Singh, Director General of ICWA, Excellencies, dear friends, Namaskar. As we celebrate Africa Day today, it is a great honor for me to participate in this discussion on food and health security in Africa, an agenda for India-Africa cooperation. I would like to thank ICWA for organizing this event, which I believe will bring some valuable insights to advance Africa and India cooperation on food and health security. I'm confident that given the two parties' goodwill, that this cooperation will lead to tangible outcomes for the populations. I would also like to congratulate Ambassador Gurjit Singh for this valuable book, which will contribute to advancing India-Africa partnership. Excellencies, for Madagascar, food security has been made first of all priorities in order to tackle nutrition, but also to achieve economic growth. Not so far than this month, the President of Madagascar himself called for the acceleration of food security and food self-sufficiency in Madagascar. Several sectors are considered as the pillars in order to achieve these targets. These are the advancing of agriculture through the improvement of agriculture production, either in quality or in quantity, and for development of rural areas. Development of a market-oriented livestock farming, promotion of fisheries and aquaculture. Indeed, as 80% of Madagascar population is rural and who live on agriculture and farming, there is a common adhesion, a shared willingness to participate in nutrition and food production through agriculture. And in these perspectives, there are some projects which are already ongoing, such as the expansion of agriculture space, particularly for the production of rice. Madagascar is a rice grower and a rice consumer. Madagascar has 36 million hectares of arable lands, yet only 8% of that surface is exploited for the production, and the production is even still very low. So there is potential to be done. And we have identified 100,000 hectares of new surface land in the west of Madagascar for the west of Madagascar. We would like to develop 270,000 hectares of land to strengthen rice production. We also seek to increase production of corn, cassava, and promote animal husbandry, expand large and medium-scale fishing production. We would like to introduce new breeds in herds of Malagasy cattle, encourage research and innovation in seeds improvement. Recently, Malagasy researchers has developed new varieties of rice that resist to floods and droughts. The Malagasy government is committed to facilitate funding for farmers to access inputs, technologies, quality seeds in order to achieve that target. And all this, ladies and gentlemen, has been strengthened at the last meeting of ministries of Agriculture and Livestock in SADC meeting, last SADC meeting. And this instruction has been made against a backdrop of global setback after 2 years of pandemic, against a rising cost of living, and also against a crisis in Ukraine, which adds up to the complexity of the challenges we face with climate change. Only this year, we have faced series of cyclones and destroying homes and agricultures. And all this harsh reality is a loud reminder of the urgency of food self-sufficiency, but also the importance of health security. And in the sector of health, we have a vision that every person should have access to quality health care. And for that, our focus is building new hospitals and equipping the existing one with modern healthcare instruments and materials, to give particular attention to mother and child health, improve the quality of healthcare delivery, strengthen traditional medicine system and traditional pharmacopoeia. These are sectors which India and Madagascar share in common. When I am in the country of Ayurveda, and I know that Madagascar is the country of Rokandro Malagasy. So I know if these two cultures meet and work together, we can do really fabulous things. And we would like to develop our pharmaceutical industry and finally, outreach populations in remote areas through mobile hospitals unities. In October 2021, the President launched a National Health Emergency Fund to facilitate healthcare for the vulnerable populations. And this fund is a special budget allocated by the government to offer free emergency first aid to patients, and especially those who are in financial difficulties. The project will be carried out in all the emergency units and at all the hospitals of Madagascar. Sorry. Excellencies, as far as cooperation with India is concerned, Madagascar knows and appreciates how India does cooperation with its partners. We know there is no blueprint, no hidden agenda, and we valued it. We know that there is goodwill, there is a spirit that seeks to support local initiatives and local programs. So I am confident that Madagascar and India will work. There is a vast agenda for Madagascar, India, and African countries to work in the food and the health security. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Tahina. I now request the last speaker, the Minister-Counsellor, Mr. Ernest Nana from the Embassy of Ghana, please.
Please, with your permission, I will want to
Please.
Director General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. it's a great opportunity for me to also share thoughts on this important topic. And I would want to seize this opportunity to congratulate Ambassador Singh for this wonderful piece of work, which I think is going to do a lot of good to us as young diplomats pursuing strategic engagement with countries like India. Thank you so much, sir. The road from insecurity to security is a very smooth one. I'm saying it's smooth because it requires us to do things, not things as usual. Business that is done as business as usual will certainly result in common things. And for us, it is important for us to understand that food and health security is important, and it is the fundamental right of our people, particularly in Africa. As I grew up as a young man, I saw my friends come to school without food. Sometimes you would have to sit with 2 or 3 people to eat together what you bring to school. We were fortunate to have parents to provide for us, but I think that we've identified a problem, that insecurity in terms of food and health is crucial, and we must traverse and move from insecurity to security. And that is why I see this occasion as a very wonderful one, an opportune one for us to share some few thoughts on going forward, what we need to do as a continent and as friends. I just want to touch on 4 main points. I have called it the cardinal point for engagement. 1, to do things as business unusual is for us to think about the policy space in Africa, how this can revolve itself and bring to pass the needed results we want. We've implemented policies for years that seem to work at a point, fails. And I think that it is important that we look at this and work on that. That is why, for instance, in Ghana, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, when he took over office, initiated a policy called Planting for Food and Jobs and Rearing for Food and Jobs. This is a policy that brings on board all stakeholders to ensure that there is harmony in terms of efforts, collaboration in terms of activities, and result that is owned by the people. The second point is for us to think about the level of public investment we put into agriculture and health. And in fact, my points cut across both areas, food and health. In terms of investment, what should we do? We should invest in research, in training, and infrastructure. I want to stress on training because if we are able to get good seeds, if you're able to get good fertilizers, if you're able to get good machinery, and we don't have quality training to help people use this, what will be the point? That is why I think that it is important for us to invest in training and research and also for infrastructure. The name of the game today is technology. And if we can do that, as we can see, a simple, small, tiny virus that went viral has put the whole of the world into anarchy. But I think that as Africa, as we celebrate this moment, it is important for us to look at this and also to work towards that. The third point is innovation and knowledge. It is important that we come to this point where we understand that the solution is to be creative and innovative, and the knowledge we can impart in terms of building solid human resource in activities and having the capacity to influence our own lives in this area. And the final point I would want to stress and mention here is strategic partnership with countries like India. In fact, that is why I see the piece of Ambassador Singh as a very good one an excellent piece that will help us. What can we do? We've heard the excellencies give all the wonderful points about our relation, and I want to align myself to all that have been said in terms of solid partnership and relationship. This is what we need in our time. When India was not able to provide vaccines to other countries, people talked about it. But other countries also were able to receive. Ghana was the first country in Africa to receive vaccines from India. And I want to say that in terms of partnership, two things we can look out for. One, building a framework in terms of legal framework agreements that will help in terms of our engagement in food, agriculture, and health. Two, implementing these agreements with the understanding that our friendship and our bond is for a collective good and is for mutual benefit of all people. These 4 points, I think, when we put them together and we work together in concert with all efforts on board, we will be able to move from insecurity to security in terms of food and health. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest, for those 4 very valuable points. I think the audience has heard the panel. Unfortunately, I am being told that there is no real time for discussion and conclusion. There is time for lunch, so that's important. So the discussion and conclusion can go on over lunch. So I'll just give you 4 or 5 of my broad brush concluding remarks. The lines of credit that was spoken about, 129 of those lines of credit worth over $4 billion in 33 countries are in these 2 sectors, by the way. 86 projects have been completed under that, 20 projects under implementation, and 23 on the preparatory stage in these 2 sectors. There are iconic projects like the $500 million, 25 towns in Tanzania water supply project. There's a $250 million of sugar industry in Ethiopia, $170 million drinking water supply in Guinea. So there are lots of these projects that are going on lines of credit. The second broad point is on the trilateral cooperation. Foreign Secretary mentioned about UK. I was in Kenya where we were talking about Japan and India in the health sector. Ambassador knows about it, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. The US in agriculture, we have done trilateral cooperation. This is referred to of how these countries are approaching us to work there. Talking about health, I'll just like to mention former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan's remark, health is not a blessing to be wished for, but a human right to be fought for. So I think that conveys all the problems about Africa, unfortunately, with 11% of the population, 24% of the disease burden, 2% of the medicines it consumes is produced in Africa, that's all. 42% of the cases of substandard drugs are in Africa. So there are huge issues where India can sort of contribute. And Africa has some way to go towards the Abuja declaration of 15% of annual budgets to be spent on healthcare. On agriculture, my concluding remarks, FDI was referred to, a very important sector where India is strong. India has the strength in FDI and the private sector, of course, coming in. So India is looking at agriculture and moving in. I told you about the MOUs with Malawi and Mozambique already, others in the pipeline. So all in all, and going back to the health, one last point which I think I missed, the E-Arogya Bharati program that was mentioned, not been fully utilized yet. So this telemedicine project is up there and running. The tele-education part is really active. The telemedicine part still needs to be sort of galvanized and activated. So the framework is there. It's for all of us to sort of work on it and take this relationship forward. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for participating and listening. We would like to invite all the heads of missions and panelists to join us for a group photo on the stairs. And please join us for lunch, which is being served in the foyer area.